for you guys who are Generation Xers and baby boomers, you're going to know what I'm talking about. So remember in the 1990s where the NBC would do the commercials and it was like a government PSA and it would come on with the star with a little glitter and it would go, "The more you know." And if you guys knew about everything that's going on right now, you would really be surprised. But I'm going to tell you. So locally, we're going to start off there. And there's a lot going on. I touched on it with my last two videos. I'm not going to harp on it too long here in this video, but I do want to say that a body was found in our search for Gretchen Fleming and other missing women who have been missing locally here recently. Within the last 2 years of me moving back to Parkersburg, I've noticed that there's a lot of crime going on in West Virginia. Now, the body that was found appears to be, I'm about 95% certain, that of Kimberly Osborne. I believe it's spelled the same way as Ozzy Osbourne, south of Morgantown, West Virginia, which is about 2 hours to the east of Parkersburg, if you were to take Route 50 out there. Now, some of the women in our group chat, they think that maybe there's a chance it could be Gretchen Fleming, and the reason that we think that could be as well is because the FBI is now involved in this case for the very first time, almost 2 years to the day after she went missing on December 4th of 2022. The FBI all of a sudden shows up at the house, the former residence of Preston Pierce, who has legally changed his name from Darrell Lott in years past, and they did a luminol treatment of the walls, and they had to black out the windows just because it's got to be dark in there. So the rumor is that apparently there is blood and possibly semen on the walls. We don't know that. That could just be a rumor, but usually when the FBI gets involved, it's either because the crime crossed the state lines or it's because maybe they found something. So we don't know. There's been no official release of information from either the Parkersburg Police Department or the FBI. And the Parkersburg Police Department doesn't want to admit this, but basically the case has been seized from them. They're acting like the FBI is working with them, but they're too embarrassed to come right out and say, "Well, we don't have any updates for you guys. It's been almost 2 years. We haven't really been doing anything lately." I think the FBI just kind of got tired of it, or maybe they found something. I don't know. So stand fast on that. We will get you updates as soon as we hear it. This whole town has been shaken into a frenzy because we're just trying to figure out what's going on. So I do want to mention again that there are several missing women from our state, and even have been a couple men in recent years. The last man that I know came up missing from our area was from Marietta across the Ohio River, where I believe a police officer shot him in the back of the head, and they tried to play it off on a drug addict. He was stopped from a DUI 2 days prior on a Thursday, right before Christmas Eve last year, around Christmas time. And then he ended up floating in the Muskingum River. So hard to say for sure, but that's my theory on it. Now, let's move on from the local stuff for now, and let's talk about what's going on nationally. So I watched 2 YouTube videos today, and I will post links for you because they do a much better job than I will here of explaining this, but it's very important to get this news to you guys. So if you guys know Candace Owens, I really love what she stands for and the content that she puts out there. She has almost 2.5 million subscribers on her YouTube channel, and she came out today. She did a lot of research. She was requesting the birth certificate of Kamala Harris's father. Now, the actual real pronunciation of her first name, because we're like, is it Kamala? Is it Kamala? I looked up on the internet, and it actually is an Indian female name, which signifies a lotus flower, is what it means. And it's actually pronounced Kamala. So I kind of want to be like, come on over. Kamala. It's kind of weird, but so that's really how you pronounce that. But apparently the work that Candace Owens has been doing is she got a birth certificate sent to her, supposedly of Kamala Harris's father, and basically it wasn't really real. I mean, yeah, it's a replica. You're not going to send the original, but it came way late after the election was over, and it was missing a whole bunch of data on it. So it actually had also changed his middle name. So Kamala Harris's father is Donald Jasper Harris, but on this birth certificate, it was Donald Joseph Harris. I'm not sure why. So there's that discrepancy there. And also, there was a lot of data that was just missing on it. Candace Owens' theory is that he's not really her father, or we don't know where he was really born. The narrative is that he was born in Jamaica and that her mother was born in India. Well, we know she has Indian ties because her name literally is Indian, like I just explained to you. It means a lotus flower, and it's a female name. But is this more of the same? Like, in the research that I've done in years, I have ascertained that Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister out of Ontario, Canada, he is actually, I believe, the son of Fidel Castro, which is the communist Cuban leader of the 90s and 2000s. And Barack Obama, as you guys know him, his real name is Barry Soetoro, and Candace Owens does a really good job of talking about that too. And another good YouTube channel that talks about Barry Soetoro, or Barack Obama, as you know him, is the YouTube channel Oso Melanin. OSO and then Melanin. You'll find it on there if you look it up. I would highly encourage you to subscribe to both of these channels. The first one, you'll find it under Candace Owens. And some of you guys are starting to wake up on Barack Obama. He is really Barry Soetoro and is in a homosexual relationship with a man by the name of Michael LaVaughn Robinson. Now, that man has undergone transgender reassignment surgery and wants to be known as Michelle Obama. Now, a lot of people have a hard time believing that. I've been trying to get my coworkers to buy into it, and that I know two of them that just refuse to acknowledge the fact that this is really the case. I mean, we've seen the videos of the appendage hanging under her dress. It's kind of hard to get rid of that. We've seen the Adam's apple, and also his brother, Michael LaVaughn Robinson, is also a coach of, I think, either Oregon or one of the Oregon college football teams. But he used to play college football, Michael LaVaughn Robinson did, for Oregon State. And his mother is Marion Robinson. And from my understanding, the Oso Melanin channel, they've talked about how she's been killed now. Michael LaVaughn Robinson's mother, Marion Robinson, has now been killed because she really didn't approve of this. She was being a little too public with the information, and the powers that be, I'm almost certain they've offed his mother now. So, and some of you guys have heard Barack Obama's speeches where he would slip up and say, Michael and I, Michael and I. I mean, it's a foregone conclusion. It's a man, but it doesn't begin or end there. We've got so many other reports of international political figures, from the French president, where that election was stolen, from watermarks on the back of the ballots when he was running up against Marie Le Pen a couple years ago, and those watermarks were on the back of those ballots. Nobody really saw them at the time, but if you were to flip the ballot over, it had a very small pencil-like impression, and that's how they could tell that those were like the fake ballots or something. Those wouldn't be counted. So that's how that election was stolen in France a couple years ago. Well, look, the heck is his name again? I just said it. Macron or whatever. Emmanuel Macron. He is supposedly married to another transgendered woman, male to female. I haven't had time to look into that. I think Candace Owens is the one that came out about that once. So if you guys get time, you might want to try digging on the internet and see if you can find information on that, because it probably is true. I was told tonight at my workplace that one of the guys that gets into this stuff, he said that Kim Jong-un, his father, has a history like Kamala Harris's father, where he wasn't real. It was just more of the same crap, where they're stealing our elections and putting these deep state, one world government puppets in to all these countries. And I also know that Brazil's presidency was stolen a couple years ago. And one of the Central American countries, I don't remember if it was, I think it was Ecuador, but I'm not sure on that. But there's a lot of turmoil been going on all across the world. Us in the United States, we're not the only ones that are going through this. So now that Donald Trump is back in the saddle, a lot of this stuff is going to basically get turned around. And He's got RFK Jr. at his side now. He's picked his cabinet members. He is not effing around, and he means business. And the White Hats have actually been in control for a while now. I've known this from videos I've seen about 4 years ago when fires were burning underground in San Francisco and Texas. You could see the flames coming up from the sewer grates. And I mean, there's been war being waged against the deep state and the Hollywood elites. And you already know about the P. Diddy stuff or the Sean Combs stuff. A lot of that, the dominoes are falling. Hollywood is now fully engulfed in flames. It is on fire. The dominoes are now falling. And you've got Ellen DeGeneres has now fled the country on the heels of Ashton Kutcher, who has already left the country because they know that people are onto what they have done. And it's not just pedophilia. It is satanic occult ritual murders. It is going to these parties. Even Kamala Harris has been seen in a white gown at a P. Diddy party. That's not good at all. And some of the liberals will come out and say, well, Trump was photographed with Jeffrey Epstein. Well, yes, he was, but that was before, that was in public and before a lot of this stuff was even known. So, you know, am I completely saying for sure that I know Donald Trump didn't know any of that stuff back then? I don't know 100%, but there's a big difference between a public picture around other people and being seen wearing a white gown at a Sean Combs party. Don't you think? So, and now Oprah Winfrey, I'm hearing she has now fled the country. And just a couple weeks ago, she was here campaigning for Kamala Harris. And she was screaming, this is the last chance we've got. You've got to vote for her. Yes, we can. And then all of a sudden, now she's gone. So I know because I've seen videos. It's been about 3 years ago when I was still in the army in Germany. I saw a video with Oprah and Ellen DeGeneres and Tom Hanks and David Spade. Remember back then when Tom Hanks faked his own death, or at least the internet reported it erroneously? Him and his wife were supposedly dead. They went to Australia on vacation, and the next thing you know, they got coronavirus and died. And then months later, all of a sudden, they were just back alive, like nothing had happened. It was the weirdest shit ever. So that quintet, those four people, or quartet, those four people of Oprah Winfrey, Ellen DeGeneres, Tom Hanks, and David Spade, on that video, you could see the wall clock on Oprah Winfrey's apartment or wherever it was she was living, house, and it had pepperoni pizza in place of the numbers and stuff. And it was very satanic looking. On Tom Hanks, he did the movie Castaway, where you remember the volleyball with the blood on it, but he put the hand on it that represented the face and the hair of this boy that he satanically murdered by the name of Wilson, and probably drank his blood for adrenochrome. I know that sounds crazy, but a lot of this stuff is coming out to the light. So you guys got to be a little more open-minded on some of this stuff because it's real, and it's with all these Hollywood celebrities. David Spade is in on it too, and you could see him holding up note cards. Him and Ellen DeGeneres on her show was holding up cards saying, "Help me, David. Is Tom Hanks alive?" She was holding up those note cards, and at the time, nobody really knew what they were doing. They thought they were just like making jokes or something. So the joke is now on them, as Ellen DeGeneres has fled the country and she has now been seen in the United Kingdom. So there's that. Now let's move on to a few other things. PokéMon Go, which I play it religiously. I know that it is now being reported that it is not just a rumor. It is confounded in truth that there is software in that game, that application, to where the CIA is spying on us. And so let me explain a little bit. I can't explain it as well as this YouTuber that I watched today, but he's done a lot of research on this, and he knew it back in 2016 when the game had launched. But he said that basically the CIA came up with a program called In-Q-Tel. And it's like Intel. The name is like Intel with Q in the middle of it. I don't think that has anything to do with QAnon, but I don't really understand it. But he said that basically that In-Q-Tel morphed into Niantic Labs, which owns and operates the app, the gaming app for Pokemon Go. And so what the premise is that the people who are going around and playing it, there's a front-facing camera on your phone and a rear-facing camera on your phone. And apparently the entire time that you're walking around, it's taking hundreds and hundreds of pictures. And there is Niantic, even now, there's a website where they just days ago have come out and admitted that they get millions of scans a week. And in the process of those millions of scans, each scan contains hundreds of pictures. So I'm not 100%, and I'm still a little bit confused. Is it actually taking pictures like continuously? Because I think that's probably the case. And so even like people who aren't playing the app, and if you're in public and you're walking around, pictures are being taken of people, and they're being taken of your face. They're being taken, if you play Pokemon Go into the bathroom, guess what they're taking pictures of? So apparently that's what's happening. It's not just a rumor. I'm going to put a link to that guy's channel out there too. There'll be 3 links for you guys to explore these YouTube channels. If you want to subscribe, you can. But this is all very important news. And, it'd be one thing if Niantic Labs in their app comes right out and says, hey, you know what? In the end user license agreement, guess what? The CIA is actually spying on you. Now, of course, they're not going to say that. But it would be nice if we had some heads up on what they're actually doing. Am I going to stop playing it? Probably not, honestly. I'm at this point, I'm so addicted to that game. I've been playing it for 3 years now. I am proud to admit that I have never paid 1 penny to play this game. I am a non-pay-to-play player, and that's hard to do. There were a couple times even today I wanted to do it, but they've changed the rules on there a little bit to where you can't do 2 raids in a day now unless you have a remote raid pass, so it makes it a little less enjoyable, but I want to collect the shinies. I want to collect the event costume Pokemon. It's just, I don't know, it's fun. Maybe years down the road, I'll sell the account or something. But one last thing I want to talk about on this game. I know most of you guys don't play this, but they put a ban hammer down on the people who are spoofing. And what spoofing is basically you're just sitting in your room, but you are like projecting your location to other countries, and you're just collecting all the things out there where there are lots of Pokestops and all that stuff. And they would ban you. First, you would get a 30-day ban, and then they would give you a permanent one. Well, we're come to find out the ban wasn't because the rules were being broken, because they want you to play as the game was initially intended, and that's what I thought. But really, the ban is because you're poisoning the data. So you're not actually, you're sitting in your room. The only thing that pictures can be taken of is your face. Because really, I think it's more than just taking the pictures of you and the other people. It's getting the data of where you've been. It's getting the data. Our lights just went out. Hold on here. Okay. Motion lights here. I'm actually doing this at work. It's my Porch Talk video, but I'm working 3 jobs today, so I don't have time to go do this at home. And it's also really cold in West Virginia. We've gotten this winter storm, and it's very blustery. So I thought I'm doing this at work inside. But like I was saying, it's not so much on Niantic Labs giving the ban for people who are spoofing because of you breaking the rules. It's because they're not getting your location. They're not, I mean, they can get your location in a room where you're sitting, but they're not getting you as you're doing this route play, going out and finding all the stuff in your community. That's what they want. The CIA is spying on you. I mean, we've looked at the CIA as a spy group, but we would think it was more for international foreign terrorists, not everyday American citizens. They came up with hot maps of all the people who are playing, and it's heavily concentrated in America and Europe primarily, and especially Germany. I mean, all over the world, don't get me wrong, but those are like the most intense pockets of where people are playing the game. So, like I said, am I going to stop? Probably not, but just be forewarned and aware that that is what is happening. And you can find that online if you search it, Pokemon Go, using, you might find it in QTech or Niantic Labs, I'm not sure, but it's out there now as of November 19th, I think, or I'm sorry, 14th. It was a few days ago. Okay, so what else was I going to talk about? I've talked about Kamala Harris's dad probably not being real. Oh, yeah. Another thing that Candace Owens was saying with Kamala Harris, and this is very important, is she believes that Kamala Harris is the subject of MK Ultra mind experimentation treatments. And she went on in that video that I'll post the link to talk about how what happens, and there are different ways of doing MK Ultra mind control, because I've always wanted to know myself. I've talked about this a lot, and I've never really known the processes of how they do it. But if you guys pay attention, we've had a lot of school shooters over the years, even dating back to 1997 with, well, yeah, I think it was 97. No, 1998. I was a freshman in high school. We watched it in geography class, but of the Columbine High School massacre with Dylan Klebold, and I can't remember the other guy's name, out in Colorado. So ever since then, I believe that almost all of the school shootings, or at least a majority of them, have been recipients of MK Ultra mind control. And if you guys remember the one in Texas a couple years ago, the 1 or 2 years ago, the Uvalde, Texas school shooting, and that had a lot of the same characteristics as the one that happened out in Nashville, Tennessee, just last year, where it's a transgendered person or a person undergoing transgender surgery, basically identifying that way, like they're going down the road of it. And then there are these school counselors. Well, I shouldn't say school counselors. Counselors is what they're being called, but those people that are being termed counselors, there's another word for them. I call them counselors. I can't remember. They're therapists. Yeah, Uvalde, Texas, that transgendered kid who was always bullied and picked on. It's like the government did their work and knew who they wanted to pick. It was somebody who was going through a hard life and kind of a social outcast. He was seeing this therapist, and this therapist was administering MK Ultra mind control. And I don't exactly know how that happened, but it did. And he went and murdered his grandmother. And then in the house that he was living in, he was living with his grandmother because obviously he was a deadbeat loser. I mean, yeah, he was young. He was not far out of high school. And all these kids are always young. They're usually right out of high school. They're not usually students currently going to school. I mean, look at Thomas Matthew Crooks of the Trump shooter. Now, I've said it before. He was a patsy. He did fire shots, but he wasn't the only one. There was an Antifa shooter on the water tower. And I do have a name. I can't remember it right now. I'll try to get that on an exclusive video just for that topic alone. But even one woman who was sitting by the combine where Corey Compiratore was murdered, she said that she heard shots coming from the other direction, not from the AG building, AGR building that Thomas Matthew Crooks was perched on top of. And of course, how did Secret Service let him up on the roof after they confronted him 2 or 3 different times? They didn't have a drone out there. And one odd thing about that Trump rally at Butler, Pennsylvania, is that was the very first rally he had to where Secret Service was there. He'd never had Secret Service anywhere. So isn't that ironic that the very first time he has Secret Service there to protect him, they drop the ball like this? And a couple of my friends my older friends in their 50s, 2 of my jobs, they've had theories that this was all just political theater. It was all just a big show and a setup, that Trump wasn't really supposed to die, that this was put on by the White Hats, that it was to help Trump get elected so we can actually restore the country back to the republic and get it away from this democracy that it has been in the United States Incorporated. And that could be, but I don't think that's the case because, one, why would anybody want to come that close to a bullet? And you could argue that it was a rubber bullet, and maybe it was, but something killed Corey Compiratore. So I'm not sure which bullet came out of which gun that murdered Corey Compiratore, but there was that Simpsons episode that predicted this, and I made a video about that. And then also Thomas Matthew Crooks. This is where it gets really interesting. His parents, both of his parents, his mother and his father, are therapists or counselors. They call them counselors for the state of Pennsylvania. And then you had Thomas Matthew Crooks leaving to go up from Bethel Park, where they live south of Pittsburgh, to go up north to Butler, which is about a 40-minute drive, I believe. And he went up there 2 different days before J13 or July 13th, when the assassination attempt took place. Now, he went up there to the Butler Farm Grounds on July 4th, Independence Day. That is when I made a video saying that I am predicting a Trump assassination. I didn't realize it, that as I literally said it on the freaking video, the guy that was planning this in conjunction with the FBI And I say that because FBI agents were at the house and the workplace of Thomas Matthew Crooks multiple times over the span of 2 years before this happened. Cell phone devices were tracked in and out of his home and his workplace. And I should post a link to that website too. I have it. I should do that for you so you know what I'm talking about. But FBI agents went back to Plymouth, Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts, and back and forth. Left on a Friday. They were there in Plymouth for the weekend, came back on a Sunday, and his parents were in on this. It's the therapists or the counselors, I'm telling you right now. But what are the odds that I predicted it in a video on this channel the same day that was all going down? I had no idea that really actively was happening, but I did feel very strongly. I said, something big is about to happen. I said, they're going to plan to assassinate Trump. Now, if you look at what's happened lately, he's had so many more assassination attempts on his life. We're counting 3 or 4. The latest one that we know of is the 4 guys out of Iran, which they've rounded up 3, and I haven't heard if they ever caught the last one yet. But they had rewards of ranging from $100,000 to around $1 million for a hit on the head of Donald John Trump. So it is crazy right now. It's hard to keep up on all of this stuff. We're trying the best we can, but MK Ultra mind control, I believe that Thomas Matthew Crooks was a recipient of that as well. And if you look, there is a picture floating out there of him going transgender. Now, some people are saying that's not a real picture. It is. And he had the gauges in his lips. When it was reported the day or the day after this happened, there was a picture released of the shooter after he was killed. And everybody was saying it was Thomas Matthew Crooks. But that first picture that was released wasn't of him. It was of this Antifa shooter from the water tower. And I have a grainy video. I can put that on another video for you, where a figure is moving on top of that water tower. So we've covered a lot in the half hour of this video. But I want you to keep in mind Ellen DeGeneres, Oprah Winfrey, Tom Hanks, David Spade. That quartet of people especially, but it's so much bigger than that. You already know about Sean Combs. You already know about Will Smith. You now know about Denzel Washington because I've talked about that. That is coming from Allison Carter, who is coming out and exposing a lot of this stuff. She was basically forced to have sex, and she was put on a table to where Sean Combs was eating fruit off of her and everything. And Denzel apparently showed up a couple times and saw what was happening, and he was disgusted by it and left. But the fact that he's going to these parties at all, and she even comes out and says Denzel Washington was at these parties and he did some of these things too. So all of Hollywood is on fire. The white hats are in control, about 80% probably. And once Donald Trump can get in the hot seat of the presidency, all this stuff can be turned around. He's going to take the fluoride out of the water. He's going to remove ingredients like Red 40 out of our foods with RFK Jr. in charge of the Department of Health. He's going to try to take the aluminum and barium out of the chemtrails in our skies. And I just get so heated when people sit there and they try to argue me that chemical trails are not real. I've known they were real for at least 10 years. I've seen videos of jets that were spraying the stuff. Apparently pilots are being recruited who don't have any children. They don't care about the New World Order. They're being given such large sums of money that they don't turn it down. And antagonists of the idea are like, well, wouldn't they care that they're breathing in the stuff too? And I'm like, well, apparently not. Or maybe they don't fully know what they're doing or just don't care. But it is a real thing. It is happening. When I was a young child, I would see contrails from jets. They would dissipate right away. None of them would linger in the sky like that in the 80s. Now, you do see both. And I've taken pictures of both at the same time, where a jet was dissipating right away and another one was leaving a vapor trail in the sky that never disintegrated. And it would wisp all the way across the sky over a period of hours and hours. And we breathe that stuff in. So aluminum is the #1 dangerous metal in your body after mercury, but nobody's going to put mercury in their bodies. I mean, I guess you could, like those dangerous thermometers that had mercury, those were very dangerous and they got rid of those. But yeah, aluminum and barium are very dangerous metals, and we are now testing all-time high for heavy metals in our bodies. So I encourage you guys to get tested for heavy metals. You'll be alarmed at the results you find. It's in everybody. We can't get away from it, sadly, unless you live under the ground, like some of these elites are doing. But it is what it is. So that's pretty much all I got for this video. I'll give you updates locally on whether we find out whether it's Kimberly Osborne or Gretchen Fleming. But this has been a half-hour video. I'm going to keep it at that. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We have covered a lot. This is very, very important news, and I'm going to try to get you some links in the description so you can follow these other channels if you desire, and to remember the YouTube thumbnail that I'm going to upload on The More You Know. That's going to be a recurring theme in some of these videos. Thanks as always, guys. Godspeed, and take care of yourselves.